In this lesson, we're going to look at the list data structure. And we're not going to talk about all the different operations you can perform on lists. We're going to save that for later in the course, but right now I just want to demonstrate how lists are made up. So we're going to use the interactive shell, so we'll open that. And the most elementary list is the empty list, which is just a set of brackets. So open and close bracket represents the empty list. If we want to actually create a list with items in it, we put items in the list, separating each item with a comma. So I've created a list called numbers that consists of the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you see I can retrieve it just like so. If I want to access a list element, I use index notation. So the first element will be in numbers sub 0, the second element will be in numbers sub 1, third element will be in numbers sub 2, and the fourth element will be in numbers sub 3, like so. And there's my sum by just adding them together. So that's a common way to retrieve each list element individually. If I want to retrieve what's called a slice, I can write 0, 2, and that will return 2 starting at the first position. Let's look at another example. So there's 3, and there's another example of pulling a slice. If we want to know how many items are in or elements are in a list, we can use the len function. We can, of course, put strings into lists. So what I'm going to do here is create a couple of lists with words in them, or actually strings. Strings is a more technical description of what's in these lists. And of course, they will display just like any other list would display. If I want to combine them, I can use concatenation. And now I get a list that consists of the combination of words and words plus 1. Let's look at one more example, or actually two more examples. If I want to replicate a list, I just use the multiplication operator and the number of times I want to replicate it, and it will give me the list that many times. So there's an example of displaying the list word 5 times. Finally, you can create nested sublists. So for example, if I have a double name like this, I may want to instead make it its own list. So I can put a list inside just like so. And then when I retrieve it, it shows me that item as a list, whereas the other items will be displayed just as a string. So those are the basics of how lists in Python work. And as I said, in a later lesson or lessons, we'll spend more time performing operations on lists. What I wanted to do in this lesson was just demonstrate how lists are formed. So let's move on to another common data structure in Python, the dictionary.